They said the courtroom was supposed to be silent, but that morning, the silence wasn't peace. It was judgment-heavy, waiting, and cold. Every creak of a wooden chair, every faint rustle of paper felt like thunder in that room. At the front, beneath the faded seal of justice, stood Commander Elise Hart. Her uniform was immaculate navy blue, pressed to perfection, the kind of discipline you could feel in the air around her. Rows of ribbons gleamed faintly under the harsh light, but everyone's eyes were drawn to one thing, the Medal of Honor on her chest. It caught the light like a living flame, a piece of metal that carried too much weight for any single soul to bear. And yet, she bore it. Until that morning, the judge, silver-haired, stern, with eyes like chipped stone, leaned forward and said the words that cut through the still air like a blade. "Commander Hart, this court questions the legitimacy of that decoration. You will remove it before these proceedings continue." For a moment, no one breathed. Even the ceiling fan seemed to stop turning. A soft gasp rose from the gallery. Elise's fingers brushed the edge of the metal not protectively, but reverently, as if confirming that it was still there, still real. She looked up, her voice calm, steady, almost sacred. "With respect, Your Honor, this medal is not mine to remove." The judge's brow furrowed. "Everything in this courtroom is under my authority." "Not this, sir," she replied. "This belongs to those who never came home." A whisper rippled through the crowd. Soldiers, journalists, civilians, each one frozen between disbelief and awe. The gavel hit the desk once, sharp as thunder. "Commander, you will obey this court. Remove it now." Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from memory. And in that trembling, the courtroom dissolved. The polished floors turned into desert sand. The air smelled of iron, smoke, and burning oil. Screams replaced whispers. The hum of an old clock turned into the roar of gunfire. She was there again, Kandahar, years ago, the day the convoy was ambushed, the day everything changed. She could see it, all the overturned transport, flames licking the edges of steel, and the sound of someone yelling for help. She had been ordered to retreat, but she didn't. "Hart, fall back." "That's an order." Her captain's voice had cracked through the comms. But orders meant little when lives were burning in front of you. She dropped to her knees, crawling under smoke thick enough to choke. She could barely see. The sand was wet not with rain, but with blood. A young radio operator, barely 20, lay twisted beside a burning jeep, screaming for his mother. She dragged him out by his vest straps, feeling her gloves melt from the heat. Then she heard the explosion. It threw her into the dirt, and when she woke, all she could hear was ringing. The world had gone silent. She couldn't even hear her own breathing, but she kept moving one body, then another. She pulled 3 men to the extraction point before she collapsed. That day, the captain didn't make it, but his last words did. "If you make it out, Hart, tell them we stood our ground." Back in the courtroom, she blinked, and the desert faded. All that remained was the echo of his voice. The judge cleared his throat. "Commander, sentiment does not exempt you from procedure. If that medal is under question, you will surrender it until proper verification is complete." She said nothing. She simply stood still, proud, unbroken. Then, from the back of the courtroom, a sound. A door opening, footsteps measured, deliberate. Every head turned. A man entered, dressed in pristine white, a naval uniform that seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 storms. His presence silenced even the whispers. It was Admiral Nathaniel Rhodes, retired Chief of Naval Operations. The judge straightened in his chair. "Admiral Rhodes, this is a closed proceeding. You have no authority here." The Admiral's voice was calm, but it carried the kind of power that came from decades of command. "Then close it tighter, Your Honor. I'm not leaving until this is set right. He walked forward, stopping beside Elise. You see that medal you're asking her to take off? I pinned it on myself. I read the citation. I saw the footage. He turned to the court. That woman carried 3 soldiers through fire and refused evacuation until the last chopper lifted off. 2 of those men are alive today because she chose to stay. The gallery went silent. The reporters stopped writing. The admiral stepped closer to the bench. You want to remove that medal? Then you remove every name engraved in the memory of those she saved. The judge hesitated. His gavel hand shook slightly. Admiral, the concern here is documentation discrepancies in the records. And stayed. Rhodes raised an eyebrow. Discrepancies? Paperwork loses its way, Your Honor. Valor does not. He placed a folder on the bench. Updated reports, satellite footage, signed eyewitness statements, every line verified. The only discrepancy left in this room is respect. The judge read. For a long while, the only sound was the hum of the old clock again. Then he looked up, his voice quieter than before. Commander Hart, this court owes you an apology. But Elise shook her head. Sir, keep it. Just make sure that the next time a woman stands here in uniform, you don't question her courage because it doesn't fit your paperwork. The judge nodded once, eyes downcast. Case dismissed. The gavel fell like a benediction, not judgment, but release. Outside, the air was brighter. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed, but Elise didn't stop. She walked down the courthouse steps slowly, her medal glinting in the sun. The admiral followed. You handled that well, Commander. She smiled faintly. I didn't do it for me. I know, he said. None of us ever do. They paused halfway down the steps. The wind caught the edge of a ribbon, lifting it gently, like a whisper from somewhere far away. It shimmered gold and quiet. Do you ever regret it? He asked softly. The choice you made that day. She looked up toward the sky where helicopters once flew and dust once burned and said, regret? No, but I do remember. Every day. Because remembering, that's how they live on. The admiral nodded, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the world, the cameras, the cars, the voices, all faded into the background. All that remained was the sound of a medal swaying gently in the breeze. That night, long after the crowd was gone and the story had become just another headline, a young woman, a new cadet, watched the footage of that hearing online. She didn't know Commander Hart personally, but she watched how she stood, how she refused to lower her gaze. And in that moment, the cadet decided she would serve too, not because of glory, not for medals, but because courage, real courage, echoes. It travels from one heart to another, across generations, across battles seen and unseen. Weeks later, a letter arrived at Elise's door. No return address, just a single line inside. Because you stood, I didn't quit. Second, Lieutenant J. Warren. She folded the paper gently, smiled, and placed it inside the same wooden box where she kept the dog tags of those she couldn't bring home. She whispered to the empty room, You're still saving lives, Captain, even now. And so, life went on. The world moved forward. People forgot, as they often do. But not Elise. She kept serving, even after retirement, visiting schools, speaking to young officers, reminding them that courage isn't about medals or applause. It's about doing the right thing when no one's watching. It's about standing tall when fear tells you to kneel. It's about remembering and refusing to let others be forgotten. Sometimes, late at night, she would stand in front of the mirror and look at that medal, not with pride, but with promise. A promise that valor, once given, cannot be taken by decree, only forgotten by indifference. And she had made it her quiet mission to make sure that forgetting never happened again. In the end, courage didn't roar that day in court. It didn't shout or demand. It simply stood tall, spoke truth, and let silence carry its weight. The admiral left without a word. The judge removed his robe before leaving the bench, and in that empty courtroom, the echo of the gavel lingered like a heartbeat. A reminder that sometimes authority must bow to honor, and that true power, the kind that endures, comes not from rank, but from the heart that dares to stand unbroken.